So let's get started on the payday super. Um, let's talk about superannuation rate. Superannuation rate is unchanged. It's still 12% from 1st July 2026. So you will be paying the same rate of super which you will paying in FY26. FY27, same rate, no changes at all. I'll explain what the changes are later on. Let's understand the process. On the current rule, which is just before 30 June 2026, what we are doing is we get to pay superannuation on quarterly basis, and we get 28 days grace date to deposit the superannuation of employees into their super fund. So let's take an example. For financial quarter, July, August, September, we get 28 days in October to pay the super. For December quarter, we are getting the due date of 28th of January. For March quarter, we have got 28th April. And for June quarter, we get 28th of July. So basically, we are getting these 28 grace days where we need to process the super, make the payment, and employees super fund has to receive the payment within that 28 days. Nice and clean. Now, under the current regime, what's going to happen is the day you pay the employee, within 7 days of that processing date, superannuation of employees has to be deposited in their super fund. So that 7 days grace you're going to get from each processing date. Let's say your superannuation is on weekly basis or fortnightly basis or monthly basis, it doesn't matter. Whenever you process that wages for the employees on a weekly, monthly or fortnightly basis, you have to make sure that superannuation of that employee reaches the super fund within 7 days. Now, guess what? When you pay the super, you don't directly pay into the employee's super account. The super goes to the clearinghouse, and from clearinghouse, it goes to the employee's super account. So clearinghouse needs some time. They might take 3 to 4 days out of that 7 days. So you have got technically 1 or 2 days after the processing date if you don't pay on the very same date, right? So basically, you need to get into the habit. Let's say if you are processing the wages today, if you couldn't pay the super today itself, at least you need to pay tomorrow, day after tomorrow. You can't delay more than that, because if you delay that, then you don't know how many days super clearing house is gonna take to deposit the money. So you need to give them at least 3 to 4 days. So that's gonna really hit your cash flow. We're gonna talk more about the cash flow later on our video, but I just wanted to emphasize that cash flow is gonna be very tight going forward for small businesses. Now, they are using a new term, QE. QE means qualifying earning. So you don't need to get confused. This is basically same thing what OTE means. They used to use OTE before 30 June 2026. OTE is ordinary times earning, and this word is replaced by QE, qualifying earning. So they have broadened the definition of QE to integrate some other things as well. But for small businesses, it doesn't really matter. You can just think it is same what OTE was. So basically, you used to pay 12% of OTE. Now you pay 12% of QE from 1st July 2026. Now, what preparation you need to do before 1st July 2026? So you need to make sure all your payroll settings are done correctly. You need to put the correct superannuation rate. You need to have a proper categories. If you have got salary sacrifice, then that needs to be aligned to the proper categories as well. And I'm assuming this is all done if you have been running your payroll system from single task payroll. So this should have been all configured for you. But before 1st July 2026, you need to make sure that this is all correctly done, because if you don't do this correctly, and when you hit the pay super button, probably there might be an error, you may not notice it, and then 7 days is already passed. You're going to be in a problem. So you need to make sure that the payroll settings is correct, your employee data are correct. If you are using QuickBooks or Zero for processing the super, all the settings are correct on that one. One thing I wanted to touch base on this one is small business super clearing house. This is getting closed from 1st July 2026. So people who were not using MYOB, QuickBooks or Zero to process the superannuation, probably they may be using some other third party or a small business super clearing house, which was probably run by ATO, and then they are closing from 1st July 2026. So people who are using SBSCH, they need to make sure that they download the data before 1st July 2026. All the historical data may be there. You need to make sure you download that and keep it very, very safe, so that if you need in the near future for ATO purposes or any other things, you have that in your filing system. Now, another thing was cash flow. You need to really plan very, very carefully, because previously you would get 3 months period of time to pay the super. So basically, if you are paying for July, August, or September, you don't need to pay super till the month of October 28. So basically, a couple of days before October 28, if you pay it, you should be fine. But now, because 7 days rule is there, you need to make sure you need to pay the super on the very same day when you are paying the employee, or the second day, right? You're going to be cash flow tight. You don't have that buffer. Keep that for next 3 months. You need to spend that on the very same. So just be mindful on those things. Also important thing, there need to be someone who is going to be a process owner for all these superannuation new regime. So if your super is done by your accountant or bookkeeper, they already know what they are doing, so they will make sure everything is done correctly, there's no error, and then you get the bill pay details, or super amount is getting direct debited from your bank account every week or whenever you are processing the payroll. But if you are doing it yourself, you need to be very, very mindful and careful. You are owning this process. You are looking for the errors every now and then, or when after you process the payroll, you are double checking that it is not gone into the error status. And if it has gone to the error status, you have to quickly rectify that and make the payments to. This is just a rundown how we run each pay cycle in the super. So you may be running the payroll on weekly basis or fortnightly basis or monthly basis, depending upon the company or preferences you have got. So a lot of companies, they have got timesheet system. They approve the timesheet, they approve the leave allowances. So you need to make sure that you are approving all that correctly in the system. And during the pay run, you have to check all the qualified earning, which is wages and salaries, or let's say allowances, bonus or commission, whatever you are paying to the employees, they are rightly categorized on the software. And once you approve the wages, or once you pay the wages, you make sure you pay the super batch through your software or clearings house. So as I said, if you are using a software like QuickBooks or Xero or MYB, it's very, very simple. There should be a couple of buttons you press and it's done. If you are using a separate clearing house, then you need to make sure that you have already organized all those things into the clearing house properly before 1st July 2026. And most importantly, after you hit the pay button on the superannuation, make sure there is no error. You check the reports, it is accepted, and then it's correctly returned, or it's not rejected particularly. Like if the contributions are rejected, coming back to you, and then we are reprocessing that again, it's going to take a long period of time. You can't make it happen within that 7 days of time frame. So you need to be mindful on that. As I mentioned before, there is a 7 days deadline from the date of processing payroll to pay the superannuation. So for some of the cases, like new employees, or even for the existing employees, and if they have got a new super fund, you get some additional grace period. So you get 20 business days instead of 7 business days. So in these scenarios, or some other scenarios where you don't have control, some of the circumstances which is not in your hand, as I mentioned previously, you will get 7 days of time to deposit the super in the employee super fund. In some of the circumstances, you get additional time frame. If you have got new employees where you may not have all the details upfront, you get 20 business days instead of 7 business days. Or if you have got existing employees with a new super fund, you get some additional time frame of 20 business days over there as well. For example, I have been using previously as well that sometimes if you are not careful, you may process the superannuation for the employees, but then it might be rejected or gone into the error status, and then you are fixing that again. If that happens, basically you are not getting additional 20 days. You have to do that within 7 days of time frame. What ATO has said there in the compliance approach is basically they're going to be very, very supportive on the very first year. So I'm assuming if there is some error, or if there is, like when you are getting through this process, if there are some unwanted errors in the software, and if you are fixing them quickly, then ATO is not going to put you on a high risk or medium risk. I think they will keep you on the lower risk, and they will not like probably charge you with fines and interest. But we're gonna have to find out how they're gonna work out from 1st July 2026. But we just need to be mindful of those things. I think I've already touched base on the cash flow, but I really want to emphasize cash flow is gonna be very, very tight from 1st July 2026 if we are not carefully working out our budgets for our payrolls. Because previously we only need the payments for the net payment of the wages. Now you have to pay super on the same day. That means you need an additional fund to deposit the super as well. And if you have got on a weekly basis, then you have to pay that on every week. Or if you have got on a fortnightly basis, you have to pay that on every fortnight. Instead of 3 months, now you are paying that every week or every fortnight. So that's going to really impact your cash flow. You need to be mindful. Maybe you are not thinking, if you are not budgeting that properly, it can misalign a lot of things, or it can put you out of budget. So be careful, guys, on those things. Now, what happens if you pay super late or wrong? So basically what they are saying is, if there is a shortfall of the super guarantee that you have to pay to the employees, then first thing is you need to pay the shortfall amount, and on top of that there will be some notional earnings. What this means is basically the interest payments, and there will be something called admin uplift. So admin uplift can be up to 60% of shortfall plus notional interest. Basically, you need to make sure that super receives the superannuation of the employees within a due date. If it doesn't, then basically you will have to pay this notional interest, admin uplift, and in some cases choice loading as well if you are not providing super choice forms to your employees. So be mindful about these interest and penalties, guys. Now, the best way to tackle this is, my advice is, you have to start your payday super from the month of June itself. You have to give it a go from the month of June, so that if there is any error or any problem, you don't get penalized. You don't get interest on top of that. If you leave it from 1st July, and if the things are not going into the right manner, then you will have to pay the additional interest and penalties on that. So basically, if you start now, there is no harm. At least you get yourself prepared on whatever pay cycle it is. If it is weekly or fortnightly, get the super paid from the month of June itself, so that probably for a couple of cycles you will get a practice run. And then from 1st July, you will be on a very smooth run. So do not leave it till 1st July 2026. It is said that, like you make the process boring before it becomes mandatory, right? Now, before we end up, I have just put an employee action checklist just to make sure that you are ready for the payday super. So, first thing is you need to make sure that you have got a payroll software. If you are using MYOB, QuickBooks, Jiro, I think you should be okay. You just need to set up your features and you should be okay. If you are not sure about this, you just need to go back to your bookkeeper and accountant, and I'm pretty sure they should be able to help you out. Likewise, you need to get your pedigree. If you are doing it yourself, you need to make sure that you look into your payroll categories and SG calculations properly. It should be 12% on super guarantee. You need to make sure the employee fund and member details are all correct and you have those in the hands. You have to choose a payment process that starts on the payday. So basically, you need to make sure that whatever cycle you are following, let's say weekly basis, fortnightly basis, you're making sure that you are making the payment on the same day when you are processing the payroll. You need to monitor the fund acceptance and rejection on the contribution. So if you are using, again, QuickBooks, MYOB, or Jiro, then the reporting system should be pretty easy. There should be a status button where you can see whether it has been accepted or not. And you need to create an internal payroll checklist system as well for yourself, for your own organization, to make sure it is all carried out on a smoothly basis. But look, if you don't know anything about this, and you don't need to panic, you just need to go back to your bookkeeper and accountant, and I'm pretty sure they will look after it. It's not a rocket science. If you look a couple of videos, and a lot of softwares, they have already provide many videos regarding the tutorial on Payday Super. So if you look into this, it shouldn't be very difficult. To be honest, it's just few clicks and you should be fine.